Hi, and welcome to our e-commerce corner. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Marie-Claire Silver, and I'm joined today by two lovely gentlemen. I'm joined today by Alan Gormley, CEO of Shopbox AI, and then also Henrik Fabrin from Certainly. Nice to see you guys today. Thanks for joining. So today we'll be talking about how we can recreate what we know and love about physical shopping, just transferring that online. So as normal, we have a Q&A session at the end. So please don't hesitate and write some questions in that section, and we'll make sure to take them at the end of the session. And we will share all content with you as well in our LinkedIn community called E-commerce Experts. So please don't hesitate to join our group and community there as well. So I'd love to hear a little bit from you, Alan, if you'd like to present yourself and just tell us a little bit more about Shopbox.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, MC. Really nice to be here. I'll give you the one-liner, guys, on what Shopbox is, and then I'll tell you kind of a bit of background on me. So really with Shopbox, what we're doing is we're bringing the Amazon-style shopping experience to pretty much any retailer. So what it's cost a few $100 million for Amazon to build, you can do it a lot cheaper. Sorry, Amazon. So just a little bit of background on me. I've spent, as of this year, 25 years now in AI and data. So I started out doing data warehousing many years ago. You can see the gray hairs. I worked most of that career for a company called SAS, which is by far the largest AI vendor globally. So about 4 billion per year just on AI, before it was the coolest kid on the block. And that's where I met my co-founder, and really where Shopbox came out of was we were doing fantastic projects with amazing results, and they were all for massive companies. And we kind of got sick of the idea that this technology was not trickling down properly to other companies. And especially in retail, when we looked at it, we saw, Amazon was way up here, like so far ahead of the field. But Amazon had been doing this for 20 years. So we thought, how is it that nobody is getting close to what Amazon is from a customer experience perspective? So we decided, let's solve that problem. And that's where Shopbox came out of. So there's really 3 tenets we have in Shopbox. Number 1, personalization as it is today, to be honest, isn't delivering. Okay, it takes way too long to understand customers. It doesn't really understand customers. So the whole ethos of Shopbox is 1 click, that very first click when you're still anonymous, we got to understand you from there so we can change the shopping journey completely for you. Number 2, it has to understand retail. And this is a really funny thing to be saying in a forum like this, but a lot of personalization engines out there just throw product at you and they don't understand retail. So I've seen examples of €3 products being shown beside €30 products. If somebody wants a €30 product, do not tell them that they can get the same product for €3. It's a terrible experience. So there's some really serious fundamentals that are missing in e-commerce. And the last thing is it's got to be easy. So typically in Shopbox, we expect to get a customer up and running with about 15 minutes work from them. Anything else, retailers just can't run big projects anymore. So everything's about get them running fast and bring that sophistication without effort. That's pretty much where we come from.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alan. We'll definitely dive a bit deeper into all that personalization topic later on in the session. So Henrik, can you actually tell us a little bit about yourself and also about Certainly?
Certainly I can. So I'm Henrik, and I'm also super excited to be here. I'm the CEO and one of 2 founders of Certainly. And quick on my background. So I've been an entrepreneur for the last 10, 12 years, and it's always been building products for e-commerce businesses. So the first one was back when every brand in the world needed a web shop. So we helped them get online and find an attractive first customers. And then when mobile happened, we then helped them attract the right customers and monetize them via their mobile apps. And Zalando, the big European retailer, was one of our biggest customers at that time. And that was also where I met my co-founder, Dario. And we were coming from more on the user's journey perspective, looking at, well, there's Zalando and a lot of brands are paying so much money to attract customers, but they're going through a lot of friction, whether it's downloading and opening an app or going to the web shop and then buying. And we could see there's a lot of friction we could take away from that in that journey that will then, of course, benefit everyone. the brand would earn more and be more profitable on their expense, but also the better user experiences. And that's at the core of what we're also doing, certainly. So we are conversational AI for e-commerce. And what we really focus on is those 98% of all users that don't convert. So you can have as many conversations as you want with any of your customers online using conversational AI. And that gives you data that enables you to understand their real motivation, not just what Alan bought 6 months ago, but why he's there today. And then through that, you can personalize the entire web shop experience on what's important for Alan today. And that's what drives those very inspiring results for our brands and customers today.
Fantastic, thank you. And on that topic of data and third-party cookies, I know is a huge topic at the moment with the disappearance of those. How are brands now collecting data and using data to give more better crafted buying journeys? Alan, maybe you can give some insights into that.
Yeah, this is a really interesting area for us because everything we do is about first party, because our whole ethos is this is your store. If you can help customers get deeper into your store, which is exactly what we're trying to do for our clients, that is where they make decisions. And when they make decisions, we typically see a 3 or 4x increase in conversion. Okay, and we also see much more repeat buys, but we also see people buy better products. Okay, so, and I think if I go back to third-party cookies for me have actually caused a lot of very bad behavior in retail. Okay, so the way we have a concept, we talk about the cycle of reacquisition. And it came from a CMO I talked to many years ago who said, I'm sick of paying Google for my own customers. If they type in my company name, why am I paying Google for that? I've done my brand. And we started to realize, we did a lot of research in a company I worked for previous and realized we're taking more and more margin using remarketing to re-engage customers who are already our existing customers. So we've tried to flip that on its head and say, okay, if you get them in from first click and you can start to wrap the store around them, they are much more likely to stay. So typically we see people spend 5 times as much time in the store over that shopping period. And that's where they're making the decision. So for us, it's actually the disappearance of our third-party cookies. I said to people, here's how you think about e-com. Think about retail. It's just retail. So think about what you do offline. How do you engage people offline? Let's do that online. That's what's really working for us. So I think the disappearance of third-party cookies sounds like a terrible thing for people. It's probably going to give a much better retail experience. And I think the people who invest well in their stores are going to do extremely well out of it, because they're not going to have to compete to just re-engage customers all the time.
Yes, definitely. I definitely agree. And Henrik, I know when we were talking last time, you had some really good examples about that, like how people are shopping and kind of the failure of third-party cookies in a way that when we shop online, we don't know who our visitors are. Can you give a bit of insights into that? Yeah,
of course I can. So one of the challenges with let's call it the commercial web or retail today is that it's kind of guesswork. So you're using third-party data to attract a user that's in a specific segment or cohort. That might be me. And then I'm on your website, and then you're trying to guess based on my behavior, what pages I visit, etc., what I want to buy. And then you're using past purchase behavior. If you know me already, if I bought sunglasses a year ago, I probably want 1,000 sunglasses today. That's not really it. But what you can do with through conversation is the same thing that a good salesperson does in the physical store. Just have a conversation with me, and I can be there today or yesterday because I wanted to buy this shirt because I would be on this fantastic e-commerce corner with Alan and UMC. But today I'm in the same store because I forgot it's my fiance's birthday and I need something here and now. So it's the same Henrik, but very different needs. And you can only unlock that knowledge through conversation. And that means that third-party data and any kind of that, or even pattern matching from history doesn't matter because I'm there with a specific need. And if you have that and you know that, that's where you can then start personalizing the experience, not to who I am, but the shopping occasion. And that's very powerful. And if you think about it, it's the same thing that a good salesperson does in the physical store. he don't or she doesn't know my name, but just how are you here? How can I help you? What are you thinking about? And how can I help you buy the most right product?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic insight. I know that, for instance, I was shopping for my son, and the day before I was shopping for myself, and often I get bombarded with ads and things for myself. Yeah, I want to buy something for my son. So that just shows the friction that is there with third-party cookies. So like Alan, like you were talking about, really making sure that we understand our visitors. How can we then use that data that we collect and really make sure that we improve those customer journeys?
Yeah, I think actually I just refer back to something Henrik said there, which is really important, is the shop assistants. So we think in terms of shop assistants because I see a digital store it's kind of like a physical store. You can't change it all the time for people. They need consistency. If you go onto a store 3 days in a row, there has to be consistency. So we kind of thought from the ground up, how do you engage people in a physical store differently when you can't change it? Well, the shop assistant does it. So every person walks through a physical store in a completely unique way, and they're guided and given help by a shop assistant. And that's the concepts that we've built into Shopbox. And just in preparation for this, I started to think back, like, what's the history of how we've engaged customers? And I think a few years ago, it was like, if you build a store, they'll come, because there aren't that many of us. So they kind of have to come to us, okay? And we'll sort out the logistics, and that's why they come to our store. And then it kind of moved on to, well, if we pay Google, they'll come to our store. And now it's like, well, if you pay Google a lot of times, they'll keep coming to my store. And now we're moving off that into, no, this is all about context. When a customer walks through your front door, from that point on, it's got to be about them. So we have very simple mechanisms like curating what they see on a homepage. It's one of the greatest wastes of space in most retailers is they use the homepage as a billboard to tell you they have a sale on. Look at the way Amazon use the homepage. The homepage is there to build the store around the customer. Okay, they may have 10 million products, but you're only seeing the 20 that are relevant to you. And you don't know about half the categories that you are never going to shop for. And that's really what we're focusing on, is how do you take a store that may be digital, but it still has to be consistent, and just wrap it around that customer in a very different way. And it doesn't mean more recommenders and more carousels and more stuff on the site. It means starting to think, so components that can help people through friction points in the shopping journey. Like when they get stuck, how do you help them move on to the next step? When there's an out of stock, there's no such thing as an out of stock. There is always an alternative product. Whereas in online, we allow somebody to see an out of stock and we just leave it sitting there for them to look at. That's a terrible experience. So always move them on to the next thing. Think the way a good shop assistant does. That's pretty much, taking those practices straight into e-commerce. Sorry, Henrik.
No, sorry for interrupting you, Alan. I was just getting all excited, and that's really where we believe at the center of this, of understanding that need and personalization is the conversation, because you not only can you help very quickly get to 1 or 2, 3 items that are most right for me in that moment. That means all the, like you said, the billboard and all that stuff just goes away. But even if I'm not sure and I'm not buying, then through the conversation you can still offer me to, why don't you sign up to our newsletter? Because if you know from the conversation that I'm one of those persons right now that most likely will not purchase, well, maybe giving me a 10% discount if I sign up for a newsletter, that's what does the trick. And again, you can super tailor that based on the actual conversation. So you don't have to offer 10% for everyone, but just doing that. So you, even if you don't convert, you can still get that hook into the customer. And to your point as well, but you have to repay Google and Facebook to get your customers. Well, that's insanely more expensive now, right? So the more you can get customers in and have them delight them and have them be part of your community, even from the first visit, the better for you, because you will simply have more yield in your revenue and everything you spend towards them. And that's always to the customer's benefit, because you'll plug that straight into providing even better experience and better products for the customers there.
Yeah, definitely. I think just on the subject that I think a lot of people are feeling at the moment, the cost of acquisition is growing and growing. How would you use AI technology and what you offer at Shopbox, and certainly to help with the reacquisition of customers, returning customers, and just giving them a good shopping experience when they return back to those webshops?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we have a slightly different view of the world. When we went out and we looked at what personalization was doing, most of it is trying to address customers way too late. Okay, it's trying to force more stuff into the basket when the customer's made all their decisions. We've done research. We've seen it can take a woman 30 days from the first click to actually purchasing a dress. Now, she's not spending 30 days thinking about a dress, but she's sitting at home on a Saturday evening watching the TV. Something comes on and says, "No, we're going to a wedding in 2 months. I might like a new dress." Okay, most retailers are ignoring the first 29 days. And that's a huge issue because you're missing the opportunity to influence the customer, and instead all you're doing is you're competing on price. So what we do is from first click, we start to change that, and we're all about inspire and suggest. Okay, that's what it's really about. Fire neurons. Use every merchandising trick you have in the book that your shop assistants use to inspire you. So when we know that there's a likelihood you're likely to go into another category, use a promotion to get them into the category. They're not going to complete on the promotion, but it's a nice way of pulling them in a way that's good for them. Okay, so there's a lot of different things that we can bring to bear on that. Now, here's what's interesting about the uplift. We tend to see about a 3x increase in conversion, and that's purely by being service-led rather than trying to force the sale. Okay, you can try and force the sale, that's fine, but you're competing on price all the time. But by doing service, you actually end up, even without cross-selling, people will buy more expensive products. They will naturally, people tend to want a better product. And we see this effect because they get deeper into the store and they see more, what we call variety with context. They look and go, you know what, an extra 10 euro is not a big stretch for me. I think I'll spend the extra 10 euro. And so we see this natural increase. We've one pet store, after 4 weeks, it was about a 4% increase in average order value. 2 months later, it's now nearly 10% increase in average order value without trying to force more stuff into the cart. We might do that at some point as well, but right now, let's try and service the customer well. But I think that's, when you start to think about it as service and engaging customers, it becomes a very different game.
Yeah, definitely. It's switching it up, isn't it? It's turning it on its head, definitely, and thinking about service, bringing in revenue. How have you seen that working as well, Henrik, and certainly?
Absolutely. So again, the center point here is the actual conversation. And traditional service has been more focused on post-purchase, right? So where's my order? Can I return an item, etc. Those kind of things. Those are fine. The shopping assistant in the store also does that. But when you move the service layer prior to, and you will also be surprised if you look at your ticket system and you can use our tool to run analysis on it. You will see that 20-30% of questions are actually questions that are relevant prior to you making a purchase. So if you answer those questions, for example, on your product page about relevant, if it's fashion apparel, sizing, how does this fit me, and you build that into your solution, in our case of bot, then same thing, you will see this 3x conversion rate and lower bounce rates. And it's all about, like you said, MC, turning it on its head. So it's not about the end user clicking and filtering, finding an old way. No, it's about the conversation, then supporting the user in that purchase journey. And I would like to say as well that, yes, sometimes the lady takes 30 days to buy that because it's a dress she needs for a wedding in 2 months. But at other points, she needs something new for her son or a daughter. And then there's something else. But also, and maybe she's buying something for her partner and she's not really sure what that person needs. And then she needs another type of advice. So again, based on the person, the type she is in that moment, you can tailor the conversation and the actual web shop. And that's where you see the magic happen. That's where you see those 3, 4, 5x, not only conversion rates, but also lower return rates. Because if you're helping upfront me buy the most right product, I'm less likely to ship it back to you. I'm also less likely to buy 2 or 3 items of the same size, of the same kind, just to figure out the fit. I don't do that if I get the help up front. And that's where, again, the analogy with the the shopping assistant in the physical store, bringing that experience online. That's where it matters a lot and where it fits perfectly.
Yes, definitely giving that personalization, but serving your customers through that rather than yourself as a business. I think that's a good way probably to look at it as well, like you were saying, Alan, previously. Now we have 5 minutes left of our session, so I thought it was a good time to maybe break out some questions. So please, anyone in the audience, if you've got any dying questions to ask us, just write them in now. But we actually have one straight away, so I'll bring that to the table. It said that you mentioned the importance of personalization, but is there a limit to how much personalization a shop can provide? I think probably this is around the subject of, I can imagine, pop-ups, ways of trying to engage, could be anything really, but is there a limit of how much you can put on your web shop from your experiences?
I can start there, I guess. Yeah, like these pop-ups are driving everyone crazy. Stop. That's very straightforward. I think we think of this differently. So the way I look at personalization, I think personalization has, to a large degree, been a set of tools that help marketers target and campaign. It's the wrong thing. We got to listen to customers. So the analogy we love looking at is Netflix. When you go to Netflix, and everybody answer this question, how many times do you go to Netflix and go to the search bar? Very, very rarely. Netflix don't do personalization, they do curation. So they're listening to the customer all the time, and they're just subtly changing what you see to make it interesting to you. That's what they really focus on. There's no pop-ups, but look how addicted we all are. Yeah, and I think that's what, when we look at retail, we think retail needs to move that way. It needs to be much more about curation rather than just firing product at us all the time. So I think personalization, I think we're moving off it now. I think it's time to start thinking about wrapping the store around the customer rather than firing stuff at the customer.
Yeah, and you also, and you have sorry, quick answer as well. And yeah, if you have a personal shopper, there's a lot of stores that have that. All of them, they know that the end user just have a much better experience, or the visitor, and they end up buying more, and they buy more of the right products. And it's about the perceived help they get. So it's service, and it's that kind of personalization. It's not the other way around where it's based on past behavior or pop-ups, etc.
Yeah,
that's just annoying. But I think what we all strive to do is provide a really great experience for our end users. It's just the way of doing it that has shifted a little bit because of tools like ours and Alan's as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very exciting how AI can really make sure that it makes a tailored, like you said, wraparound experience for those online customers. On that note, we have a second question. Can you share a few examples of retail websites where you see Certainly and perhaps Shopbox in action, so that we can experience those things and what you're talking about with us today? Just a few examples. Perhaps Henrik, you have a few, and then we can take Alan after.
Yes, of course. So we have a bunch of examples. One of them, first of mind, is Tiger Sweden, a Swedish international affordable luxury fashion apparel customer. That's in that industry. We also have in the US Feastables, which is a D2C brand launched by the big famous YouTuber Mr. Beast, where he launched and had incredible utility, and I think we're driving 10-20% of their revenue now today. And those are different experiences. That's also the key here, that you can not only personalize the experience, but you can also personalize it to your brand, and then offer the kind of conversation, the kind of look and feel that suits your brand and how you want to talk about it.
And Alan?
Yeah, I'll just give a couple of examples. So just given Danish company on the Certainly side, mentioned Soya Concept. So we just went live with Soya Concept recently and just rolled out across their 4 international stores. So that's a really exciting one for us because we like apparel. I think apparel is a great place for service. We always love it. And then I just mentioned a couple in the UK. So we've been working with Shoe in the UK, one of the largest shoe retailers in the UK. And they were really interesting. We went live with them before Black Friday, and Black Friday is really interesting because everyone thinks of it as they're just bargain hunters and they just want to get it in the basket and get out the door. It's like buy as many Nikes as you can afford to buy on Black Friday, But here's the thing. average order value still went up. So even during a really hyper sale, we started to see really interesting behavior. And so the value of Black Friday increased because of Shopbox on there. And the other one I really like is KitLocker. So KitLocker is a sports apparel company in the UK, about 120,000 SKUs, so a very complex business. But they sell a lot to clubs as well as to consumers. So it's a very complex business, but it's a very interesting business because there's many different conflicting needs. And that one, really interesting. We just went live there with the curated homepage on KitLocker, so exciting stuff there.
Fantastic. So it seems like we don't have any more questions, but I just wanted to say thank you to Henrik and Alan for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure having you. And like mentioned at the beginning of the session, we will share this recording in our e-commerce community on LinkedIn called E-commerce Experts. And we'll also make sure we follow up with everyone that has attended today with a follow-up email as well. And in the chat, we will love to also share with you links for certainly.io and also Shopbox, so we can make sure that you can have a little browse on the website and find out a little bit more about our two companies there. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you all have a fantastic summer, and our next e-commerce corner will be in August. Thank you, Alan, and thank you, Henrik.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.